Sean.
Elise, you're looking smashing, girl, smashing. New hair. I love it.
New hair, new person. Gosh, it's
I
been, yeah,
love it.
it's really fun.
Yeah.
Pink inspired. She's one of my all-time heroes. I think she's one of the most authentic people, and so I'm like, I'm gonna have to do a little bit more styling, I think, but that's okay.
Throw some moves on stage, up
Oh
some
my
ropes
gosh,
and
yeah,
some poles and things. I
gosh.
love it. You look great.
She's been doing her show, hasn't she?
Mm.
Her live shows, and I've got so many American friends I've been going and just absolutely raving about it. So anyway, welcome to Mystic Musings, everybody. If you're live, welcome. If you are watching the replay, equally welcome. And yeah, it's always such a pleasure to share our raw and our real thoughts with you as we lean into really becoming the light that we're meant to be in this world, right? So really about, the light workers we are and the modern day mystics we are, and stepping forward into this new era, especially of leadership, and a new way of leadership and empowering women in particular. I think that for us is super exciting. Sean, you talked a little bit about what's happening in the next sort of decade or two with women and the
So
redistribution of
exciting.
wealth. So could you just remind us what you said about that, please?
Yeah, don't get me started. Well, I can spend hours on this, and it's such an exciting time, and for men and women. But I think I wanted to speak around the sort of, let's say, the more divine, feminine essence that's coming through. Is over the next decade, there will be we're already in the process of it. We're seeing it already. The initial startings of a wealth transfer. What that means is that for the first time in history over the next decade, this kind of wealth transfer to women, where women will, for the first time in history, have more personal wealth than men. Now, obviously, it's going to be, there's going to be differences, country specific, et cetera, and it's a journey. But that in itself is very significant, because with the wealth transfer, we're also got a transfer of power. And I think we're just in an incredibly exciting time. My senses, and it's just my own senses, no evidence for this whatsoever. Should Kamala Harris, for example, win the presidential election here, because so much of what happens in America has such a ripple effect in the world, I suspect that psychologically and subconsciously, with this rise of power, we're going to see quite a significant elevation of women across the world being elevated into positions of power. Now, you bring in power and wealth together. That means the decision making, the consumer behaviors, the way wealth is distributed, the way things are operated. Women just think and feel differently, and so this has got a lot of significant implications for what the next coming years means for the world. I think regardless of whether Harris wins or not, the trajectory of women in power will continue. Now, one of the things that I'm now deep diving into as I kind of immerse myself in a bit of a research process around all of this and nut down the specifics is that, and it talks into the conversations we're having, and that's why I'm like so intrigued and fascinated. As you can hear, my mind is grabbing and connecting dots from all over the place, because that's my skill and my ability as a bit of a futurist, is
So
to
beautiful.
pull the trends in. But what I've kind of come to realize is that, the same thing around power, and I've been talking about the concept of love your fucking power now, as part of my message and part of what I'm encouraging to the world. And this is not your powers in controlling, manipulating. This is your light power. This is the light that comes through you and your ability to transcend. So the final thing I want to say on this is that what's happening and what I see happening is that there's been a very achievement orientated period, right? Doing. The divine feminine is more being, the masculine is more becoming. It's the doing. And so what we are talking about is that even women have been on this great trajectory of achievement orientated. And at the same time, when you look at a lot of events and a lot of like retreats and that kind of stuff, it's more women who are involved in the spiritual aspect of consciousness. Yes, there are men involved as well, but it's more evident that women show up at these things. So when I look at all of this, the piece that's coming together for me is that we're actually on this transcendent, the self-actualization path, and we're probably entering that phase, because if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've got sense of belonging, if you've got those, there's finances and all those kind of things, then you're able to go into that self-actualization, self-transcendent space. However, we've never been here. We've never been with women in wealth. We've never been with women in more power. We've never been on this more evolutionary path now into the next space. So we're into a new paradigm. That's where I'm at the moment. And I'm going to be, and so even if you think about, for example, you and I in coaching, most of what's come into existence in historically is a lot of it's been left brain male orientated in the design of things, whether that's corporate structures, whether that's the way money's distributed. Even coaching models have been designed results orientated. Actually, now with this whole shift towards women, now how do we coach? Now how do we set up, financial structure and organizational structures and world structures? It's a new paradigm. Anyway, that leads into probably part. This is where I'm focused at the moment.
So beautiful, and I love that we are sort of living in these times. I'm so grateful that
so much opportunity,
experience it, and thanks for presencing that with me. And I think with that comes a lot of uncomfortableness, because obviously we go through enormous amount of change. And I think, people like you and me and modern day mystics like us, we have a incredibly fast cycle of kind of growth and development, right? We're navigating lots. So it's like, you can sort of condense decades into days, if you take those quantum leaps, and sometimes it can feel like a bit of a roller coaster ride. But yeah, that's really what we're leaning into, and I think what we're giving all our modern day mystics permission to lean into more. I said to my coach this morning, careful what you wish for, because I was kind of leaning into this whole journey of letting go. But she's like, oh, you don't just let go. The body's got to gather all the information, and it will only give it to you when it trusts you to handle it with care and to keep it safe. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. So letting go comes with really processing, with feeling all the feels. And I'm like, light bulb moments for me. So that's just a little example, kind of prominent example today. But today we want to talk about your story in a little bit more depth. I know that over the weeks we've shared snippets of our respective stories, but I think, what we want to really showcase here is kind of like our hero's journeys that we all go through. We each have a unique hero's journey, and, really just helping people to see how you've navigated it, and as a sort of a mirror, I can sort of help present some of the core concepts. So I'll probably take more of a sort of a coaching role today, and then you are going to be sharing your story with us. So where would you love to start?
Yeah, thanks so much, Marlies. Yeah, so I think this whole sort of idea, we've spoken a lot around reframing, and I speak a lot around calling back your power, stepping into your power. And it's not so much calling back your power, it's about remembering who you are. And what I've come to realize, and especially the last couple of weeks, I've had quite profound experiences, insights, whether they've been in coaching conversations or coming to my own sort of insights. And I'll say this, it's like my house is burning down, and it's interesting. A dear friend of mine, in fact, she was someone I reported to before I left South Africa, a phenomenal leader in the bank, and I just have deep respect, in fact, for her. But her house practically burned down probably a month or so ago, and I received quite a lot of intuitive insights about that, and it was like, oh wow. the symbolism of that, not just for her, but for many of us and for myself, for example, in leaving South Africa, coming over here, it's like, oh, my house is burning down. What does that mean? It simply just means that the old structures, and it leads into and leans into the conversation that I opened with. It talks into the structures are burning down, the old way of doing things, the paradigms, the structures of what we know are burning down. So if you think about it, all of my structures have been in South Africa, been in the corporate world, been in actual practical structures of home, walking to an office, of how I was operating, etc. And I've been in this phase of like my house is burnt down in all sorts of avenues, and I'm currently now rebuilding the house. And in burning down the house, for example, or leaving the country, like, I had to pack up a whole lot of stuff. I had to give away a whole lot of stuff. I could only bring a certain amount of stuff over, only the essentials. And that's kind of the process, I think, of what a lot of us are going through. And I will tie it back into some of my story, because there's iterations of this about remembering who we are all along. But I think we're going into an intensification process of this, where I was saying to this friend of mine whose house did burn down, I said, only the essential things that you needed were ultimately left. It's like your family, or a few odds and ends, and funny enough, their passports and stuff like that, which I think is also symbolic for her. And needless to say, like, only the essential elements of my life could come with me as I started the rebuild and somewhere else. And we go through iterations of this, but I think we're in a very severe, what feels quite severe for people. And it talks to you let it go, but it's really because our souls are already in the new paradigm. Our souls already know who we are. They're on that reality. They're in that quantum world already. Well, not quantum, but they're actually living in this reality. And our minds and bodies and actions need to now catch up to that and be on the new timeline, right? So it's an interesting process to go through. And that's really, I guess, been the story of my life. I'm in a huge adventure right now, an adventure of freedom, an adventure of liberation, an adventure of breaking down and seeing. And there are many days that it's super uncomfortable. Sunday, I spent the morning in tears, just like, for no reason other than just being sad at the loss, but not even the loss, just being sad. And whilst the process of liberation is amazing, and freedom and moving to a place of ease and more beingness, the body, the human, goes through these experiences of like, what the fuck's going on? Like, everything I knew, as I collapse old structures, but also really just seeing how separate we have become, how the journey of separation from the divine source of love, right? And that's really just about remembering who we are. And so, like, me just taking a moment to breathe into, wow, like, these are the things I believed about myself. These are the things that I thought, that there's something wrong with me, that I'm not good enough. These are the contexts of the lenses that I was wearing, that I truly believe there's something wrong with me fundamentally. And that's part of what was my story as I now look through different glasses. And there's something wrong with me, which I think many females carry just for being female. And practically, if you look in terms of the laws, if you look in terms of, what we were born into and the structures we were born into, is like, you're not good enough. As a female, you can't get this job. As a female, you can't earn as much as a male. Then I can wear the cloak of and the vehicle of being gay, where at that point in time, 20 years ago, you could look in the psychology books and the psychiatry books, and I think it's a DSM-4 or DSM-5, I don't know, there's something wrong with you. Practically, you need to go for psychiatric help and take tablets and etc. And legally, there is something wrong with you. So that becomes fact. That becomes a cultural, social norm. So I'm 19 years old. No, I'm gay from 12 or 13, trying to fit in. And so I'm wearing these glasses. Oh my fuck, there's something wrong with me. And dear mom, love her to bits. And society saying, oh my God, please don't ever be like that. Don't I don't know what I'll do if you're like that. It's disgusting. Oh shit. So let's add the glasses of disgusting on that. And now I get to walk through the world with these glasses. Oh my God, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And I look to the future with the glasses of I'm disgusting. There's something wrong with me. And at the time of coming out, actually, that was the first start of standing in significant truth, significant strength, significant starting the process back then of taking a stand for this is the truth of who I am. Unfortunately, I wasn't skilled enough at that point in time to realize that I was starting to undo the karmic bonds. And so for all of you out there who have in your younger years done something major and significant to take a stand in a time where it was so difficult, it's not that you lost your power, it was that was the first step of the karmic collapsing of bonds. And so to reframe that, congratulations to you, so brave, so courageous. Don't think that that was something that shut you down. Think about that and go back and receive all of the courage and all of who you were to start that journey. And that was the start of the callback in terms of me saying, okay, I'm taking a stand for society, for culture, to say, this is the truth of who I am, have a look. Now, some of that got tainted as I continued the journey, because I was still walked through life with the constrictions and the prison of those constructs. However, through the awakening process, I was called forward into, let's say, different support mechanisms, whether it's coaching, mentor, into the quantum world, into all of these healing modalities, etc., to help start alleviating, to say, hey, there's not something wrong with you. But it was only until recently that I could actually have a look inside, similar to what I did with you last week, to say, oh, there's no label inside of me to say there's something wrong with you. There's no label inside of a woman to say there's something wrong with you. There's no label inside of anyone to say there's something wrong with you. What label is inside the true essence and nature of my soul, which is I'm free, I'm loving, I'm beautiful, etc. And so I get to start working with, every time I have a struggle with I'm disgusting, I get to take those glasses off. And that is like just the next now evolution, and encouraging, everybody to do that. And so, just to kind of bring back, there's various aspects to my story. I found myself on my deathbed. I had pulmonary embolisms where literally I was nearly died. And that was a couple of years, sort of into my mid-30s. But the process of, let's say, me becoming so degraded in terms of who I thought I was, to such an extent, and my heart was so closed, the only way to really wake me up was this, oh Jesus, like I'm literally lying on a deathbed, doctors all around me, coughing up blood, can hardly breathe, and recognizing then, and that was probably, a key low point, even though I sort of still continued to be successful and continue to wake up. But the real wake-up call coming in my mid-30s, as I lay on that hospital bed and gasping for breath and feeling the grayness of death, like literally feeling death tugging at my door, and recognizing, okay, fundamentally, I have to start living differently, because this is going to cost me my life. And, really then starting to implement quite significant changes then of taking off glasses and putting different glasses, taking them off, and starting a different course and different trajectory of my life. As I started to show up more visibly and show up and apply the various skills and that kind of stuff, and obviously then that translated into getting the opportunity where I had such a beautiful career in the corporate world, and that took me into space of having to really present myself, get visible, own my voice, own my clarity, own my opinions, and have a voice, and sit at executive tables, and so it was very symbolic, that whole journey and experience. And obviously that's just taken me on an upward trajectory where I can, it's almost like me being in another country right now is the ultimate epitome of, because all the things I was scared of, the strategies around not belonging, right? South Africa, I belonged, I had a tribe, I had a corporate structure, I had friends, I had all of those things. And I've kind of like, wow, I'm going to be in this place where all of the things that would ping me as triggers, as pain points, like this is where I get to kind of be naked and bare, as I rebuild this beautiful identity that is so solid in myself. And I'm still building it. So, you know, I can have my moments where the fuck do I belong? I don't belong. And I think
Yeah.
it's Maya Angelou who has the beautiful quote to say it's something along the lines of like, you belong nowhere and everywhere at the same time. And so can you get
Yes.
comfortable with that idea, you know, truly being nowhere and everywhere, as I come into my own different level of self-esteem, of self-confidence, of self-assurance, of sense of self more than anything. And my soul and my beingness gets to present in a, you know, in a new culture, foreign culture. I established myself in my career and my business and all of those kind of beautiful rebuilds, but from almost building a new spine, I want to say. Like I'm really in the process of building out this spine that is truly honoring, you know, all of who I am, from the sense of power and consciousness that is, there is nothing wrong with me, there is nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong, you know,
Yeah.
etc. So it's a little bit of my
Yeah.
story.
So good. Thank you so much. I just want to present a couple of things that you've said. So I think for all the expats out there, because I was an expat for 18 years myself, well, expat, I lived in a country not thinking I was ever going to come back to South Africa, but I think there's something about a Sunday and that
Mm,
sadness. I don't think it ever really goes away because I think Sundays are just such a sacred day with family. And usually, you know, if you have those deep body memories of spending your Sundays with, you know, loved ones, with friends. So I just want to sort of take a
mm,
moment just to say, you know, obviously honor those moments because I think they are really grieving moments, as you say. They are, you know, the house is burning down, the fire. And it just really struck me when you said a friend, you have a friend. I think I know this friend because you know we both. It's I think
mm,
it's Lizelle.
mm.
So we both grew up in Bredasdorp. So she's I think
Oh, yes.
yeah, for many years her parents were my parents' neighbors.
Oh my
So
God.
it's such a small world, isn't it?
I love it. I love it. Yeah,
um,
gorgeous.
I did see a little post about this one item that was left, which is
Yes.
a little like sort of angel and the symbolism in that, and her surviving and the strength in her surviving this
Mm,
big fire. So there's so much meaning that we can take from that, and so much symbolism that we can take from that. Sean, I also love how you helping us really understand that you know you've never really lost your power. Like it's not like
mm,
we're not saying you're reclaiming your power because you've lost
mm,
it. It's more the emphasis on remembering who you are.
mm,
I think that's so important because yes, sometimes we give our power away when we don't speak up and we don't stand our ground and we don't assert ourselves. You know, you sort of have those moments where we say you give your power away, but it's really just moments where we really truly forget who we are.
mm,
So and that's really helpful to sort of presence that with us. So thank you. So I
mm,
want to just dive a little bit deeper into sort of that moment. You know, obviously you were saying you're lying on the hospital bed, and that
mm,
was kind of a really like I think you know probably there's that sort of mortality motivation, you know, in terms of you know this is a life or death type situation, and you know something has to drastically change. It's like enough is
mm.
enough. This is my moment. Um, what would you say was kind of the big kind of the insight or the realization that you had to kind of get you on that upward trajectory
Mm,
almost?
mm. I'm going to answer your question now. I just want to highlight because you mentioned an important point. And so, just to close the loop on wearing the glasses and what you're saying about giving our power away, we do give our power away because we're still wearing the glasses of there's something wrong with me. So in those moments we don't have the voice or we keep quiet or we don't show up, it's because we've got the glasses of there's something wrong with me, let me keep quiet, or I'm not good enough, or I'm gonna fail, or like, and so just to
Yeah,
understand, I think for our viewers, the important thing when I talk about the glasses is
yeah,
when you're finding yourself in that moment of like self-doubt and the moment of inadequacy, of the moment of like you wanting to do something, but then you choose not to do it, just take the glasses off, because you just need to change the context, and you need to look inside yourself and ask yourself the question, like, is there something wrong with me? Am I a failure? Am I not good enough? And if you can check that there's no label there, then put on the new glasses and step in and have the conversation. Because those are just some of the strategies and the defenses that we put in place in order to not step forward. And so, yes, we can lose our power or give it away, but it's just because we're not in the new glasses yet.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
So just to come back to, sorry, I've got a little puppy here, and he's wanting to get out, and he's scratching the door, which is white, and so I'm going to just have to let him out. I love my little animal to bits.
Go for it. We love our furry animals who always interact with us at exactly the right time. Of course, they know.
He came from South Africa. I love him to bits, my little Ollie, and he just hates closed doors. So he scratches and then he walks back in. Yeah, anyway, and he kind of looks at me, and he's eventually gone out. But that's he does not enjoy.
He's not getting all the attention, Sean.
It's like, don't imprison me. Exactly, my best little friend. So, I think it was really delving into, I had to really go into, I'm a big symbolic individual. So the fact that something so severe was showing up in my life in terms of, actually, this is like the death of me, but in so many instances, many of us can traverse through life kind of being dead inside, because we've lost the soul of who we are, because we're trying to fit, we're trying to belong. We've got all these kind of coping strategies to keep us safe, to keep ourselves provided for, and to keep, just to keep ourselves belonging, but they're not our strategies. We're in someone else's swim lane. And so we've kind of died, even though we're still alive. There's no aliveness, there's no joy, there's no and it's a pandemic in itself today. So many people feeling lost, so many people feeling just not alive, not in the roles and the jobs and the careers that they really want, just kind of existing but flatlined. And so I would describe myself back then as someone who was like flatlined. I just was so numb, I couldn't feel. And I just continued to get more and more numb. And even though, like I say, in the outside world, I was someone who was successful, top squash player, really successful kind of business and personal training, I was just so numb to myself, and so lost, and so unclear on what I really wanted and who I was in the world. And again, all culminating from, even though I'd taken these brave steps to take a stand, I didn't have the support structures and the support mechanisms to really know how to navigate it. And so I arrived then, at this junction. What was interesting, I'd actually had a hip replacement op. So I'd had the hip replacement op at a very young age as a result of playing squash. But 4 or 5 weeks afterwards, this was like something that had happened. And what was interesting, like the hip replacement was symbolic of, I'm on the wrong path. I'm on other people's paths. Why? Because I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to just like not be sick, not something wrong with me. And so, got myself into a situation where I was on the wrong path. And again, I'm the kind of person who would be in this kind of like self-punishment, and just carry on when my body was telling me, hey, like, you're on the wrong path, and had to kind of stop me with a hip replacement. And then eventually life just stopping me and saying, got to have a look. So I'm on this kind of deathbed, and let's say I'm coming out of it. Everything turns out okay, but recognizing, I think it was really when my doctor said to me, he said, "You have no idea." He says, "I cannot believe you're alive, because I'm going around my neighborhood, and I'm doing the rehab for the hip replacement, and I can't breathe. I've got this pain in my chest, and I'm doing all sorts of stuff, but I'm like on my crutches, busy walking, doing all sorts of stuff with my rehab." But by the time I'm on this kind of in hospital, and he like, once they get me stabilized, he comes in the room the next morning. He says, that you cannot even get out of bed to go to the toilet right now. You are not allowed to move. He says, like, I cannot believe you're even in this hospital with everything you've been doing. 2% of the population survive pulmonary embolisms. And for about 3 weeks, I'd like had this pain and I'm like moving through it and whatever. So I think it was just like when he said that to me, I was like, wow, my soul wants to be here. My soul does not want, not
Oh,
what, like it's got work to do here. And that
yes,
was the
yes, yes.
first kind of like, okay. And then it was just spending time, like what's really on offer here. And first of all, it was like my heart had become so locked up. I would describe it as a frozen heart. Like it was so, I'd become so small in who I was, even though externally I still had a presence, but internally I just kind of really locked up. And so it was like, it's time to start living and feeling and being
Yeah,
alive. It's time to start experiencing joy. It's time I have to unlock my heart. I have to unlock the intuition. I have to bring my heart front and center forward as that intuitive mechanism that knows the way home, that is home, and I'm home to me, and go on a journey of like deep self-acceptance. And it was interesting in South Africa, you'll be familiar with Comrades. We have a road. I'd always wanted to do Comrades. It's a 90-kilometer, 56-mile run. And as I was coming out of this process, it was like, next year I'm going to run Comrades. This, you know, despite the hip replacements and everything, but I'm going to run. Part of running Comrades is a celebration of the joy of my life, the joy of my being alive, the joy of me being in this world. And part of running Comrades was that every morning I would wake up at the rise, at sunrise, without fail. And you know, you train for 6 months and you go into winter, but the sunrise was my deliberate celebration that I was still alive, that I could get up and still see the sunrise and still celebrate that journey. And so in that process of coming out of, you know, obviously that experience, it was like, okay, now I'm going to start living. Now I'm going to bring all of me forward. And whatever that
beautiful.
takes to bring all of me forward and to experience the fullness of who I am, the fullness of my life, and who I truly am and what I'm truly capable of, like that is what's going to be happening from here on in. And so, you know, very much from there
Yeah.
on in, you know, it's been there's been adversity, but it's adversity on the right track. It's not been adversity, suffering and struggling. And there's a distinction between those things.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. And I think what's so amazing is kind of the benefit of hindsight and obviously perfect
Uh,
timing along the way. You know, it's like you don't necessarily at the time understand it and know why it's happening, but you know, there's always, with the benefit of hindsight, you know, we've
mm,
got this sort of like just like looking back one day and realizing, oh my gosh, that happened exactly at the moment it was supposed to
mm,
happen. And that's sort of the tapestry of life and the beauty of life, but also our opportunity, I think, is always to lean into the fact that there is this divine unfolding, and how we work with it, working with the universal laws, you know, because there is a right way, but we
mm,
just have to find the right way to work it. And we usually work, you know, we sort of usually jeopardize ourselves, and we usually sort of petrify and, you know, catastrophize, and so that's the opportunity, I think, you know, for all of us, you know, as we sort of wrap up this conversation, is really to sort of check in with the conversations we're having, and
mm,
recognizing, you know, like you did on the deathbed, around, you know, my soul really wants to be here. And
mm,
that conversation you had with spirit, with your higher self, and recognizing, I actually want to live.
mm,
And then being very intentional about wanting to live, choosing it, I think is just so powerful and so beautiful. And so I want to thank you for being vulnerable with us today,
mm,
sharing more
of
about
course.
you and your story. And I every week, you know, the
Mm.
conversation just inspires me so much, and I'm so happy that we started these.
They're beautiful,
Yes.
really, really beautiful dance for sure.
So yeah, thank you. I can see we have a few people tuning in live, so thank you for joining
Wonderful.
us today. And you know, we will be back. Well, next week I'll be traveling actually, but I actually will be seeing Sean next week.
Yes.
So we might be dialing in or tuning in at a different time, but we'll let you know when that's going to be. Yeah, I'm actually traveling next week for an event. I'll be speaking on stage on the 28th of September. So if you want to know more about the event, I can share, or I will share the details. So just keep an eye on my social media. It's called Amplify Her. So very much in keeping
Beautiful.
with our theme here. And yeah, Sean, I can't wait to see you.
Yeah,
Well,
it's gonna be
next
beautiful.
this time I'll be on my way to you.
So
Yay.
exciting. I'm so excited.
Very
It's gonna be
cool.
gorgeous.
Very. You
Yeah.
take care, everybody. Thanks for
Thank you
joining.
for tuning in.
Listen. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.